regardless of what function we're carrying, how it's all going, we said we're here for it.
We did.
And we're in it together.
We are.
Well, hey.
Hey.
How are you?
That's great.
Excited to get this thing started.
So excited.
This is your favorite, isn't it?
It is.
I know. No, we're excited to start our new podcast together. So it's been something that we've kind of been dreaming of and thinking about for a while. Mm-hmm. In some ways being reluctant to start it as well.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah. So, I think our heart for this is really just to have honest conversations. And so I love that we're sitting at a table across from each other and people get to kind of peer into our dysfunction and the things that we've learned. And I don't know, what's your heart for the marriages and the families that will listen to this?
Yeah, I think obviously we sit in a unique position where we get to talk with other families, other couples, other leaders in ministry. And so having all of that perspective just to kind of talk through the different issues that we face, the trials that we go through, the mountaintop experiences, the great things about marriage. But really, I think for me, when we were talking about doing this podcast, I'm kind of somebody, which I'm sure we'll get into later.
We'll get into all the things.
I like to kind of know, at least have a baseline for what I'm getting ready to do, talk about. Yeah. Classic overthinker. And for me, at least, I think that's why I've kind of dragged my feet a little bit on doing it, because in a lot of ways, I'm 43 or 45, and to some people that seems old. Yeah. To our kids, we're ancient, but to other people, we're still really young. And I think I can for sure not have confidence in myself to even feel qualified to talk about some of these topics, because I don't feel like, we're just in kind of a in-between season, I think. We still have youngish children. We don't have, adult children.
We got a 10-year-old.
Yeah. 16-year-old.
16-year-old. Help us, Jesus.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, I think I, for a while, have felt very unqualified to do it. And then in our conversation, even in our conversations with other people, it's been hearing them just say it's been helpful just to bring up the subject, just to talk through it. Not that we have to have it all figured out, because we certainly don't. But I think that's kind of how I'm coming to the table, pun intended. Yeah,
I think we want to make it. Did
you like that?
I know, it's impressive. I think we just want to make it okay to have a conversation, and for people out there to know they're not alone in it, and that somebody's willing to talk about it. And we're not professionals. We're pastors, and we are first married and love each other and have had to work through our own crap a lot. And, we are in that stage of parenting where there are some things that we've learned for sure. And then there's some things that we have done completely wrong. And then there's some things we have no idea. Like, we have theories, and the next few years we'll discover that probably all those theories are wrong. We are grateful for people that have gone before us, though, that speak into our life and that we have. And so, but, our hope, I think, for this is when we were talking consistently is we just want it to be authentic and real, and share with you our failures and share with you things that we've learned, because we have done a lot of work in marriage, and we really want that for every marriage, that they would just get to work. Yeah. Because the best things in life come from this relationship when it's good, and the worst things in life come from this relationship when it's hard and it's bad. And so anyway, it was kind of fun, I thought, to come up with a name. And so why don't you talk about the name a little bit, Here for it. Here for it.
Here for it.
Here for it.
We didn't actually come up with the name.
I know, that's what I love
about it. Which is why I was trying to get some information as to, how it kind of came about. I mean, obviously, like I Googled, I have found myself saying it a lot. Yeah. So I don't know that I've
We're also
noticed.
Bringing back the phase, true that.
True that.
True that.
That's so great. But, being a overthinker, I did Google
Oh yeah,
what the phrase
I'm sure you did. Here we were prepared. I mean, there's a whole definition coming.
So I wanted to read it. I thought it was interesting. It says, "Herefore it means that someone is fully invested in, excited about, or actively enjoys something happening or being discussed."
I don't know if I'm here for all that.
I don't know. When I read that on Google, I was like, wow, that sounds really positive. And I think it is a positive thing because it does express like commitment, like I am here for it. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I have found myself kind of using that phrase more for when things are like sticky or there's tension, and just to kind of reiterate like, hey, I'm here for it. I'm all in. So I think that's my take on it. What's your take on it?
Well, I mean, you know.
What do you think of when you hear that?
Well, I thought the definition was really good because I was like, man, it's cool.
You did not Google it, did you?
I didn't. Heck no. I make all this stuff up as I go anyway. You know that. That's why. That's why we have a whole episode talking about how we got here, which is this one. But, you know, I think what I do believe is that when we set our vows before God, what we promised each other was our work. Yeah. We promised that we would work on this. And in all of our years of just being married and really not understanding that, I think there's a lot of things that, you know,
20 years,
25 years of being together.
Dating.
Totality. You know, for us, like with my pastor hat on, there's just so many things that I wish I would have been told and known. Not before I got married, but probably the year after I got married. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like you go through all this dating, you go through all this like premarital counseling probably, and we did it with my dad, which was traumatizing and a whole different experience. When your dad literally talks and he literally says, "Let's talk about bumping bellies," that's like a whole nother cringe.
But for people who knew your dad,
that was
be like, "That's classic.
That was
Greg.
Classic Greg." And so. You know, that was one thing, but then you get to the other side of marriage and you realize how hard it is. And that first year was really tough.
It was a doozy.
Yeah. And then once we got past that, the next 14 were really hard. And so like last few have been really good. And we say that, but really that's very real.
Tongue in cheek, but that's honest.
It's very honest. Like we just really struggled for really the majority of our marriage because we really thought it was supposed to just happen. Mm. And we didn't know how to put in work. So when I think the title's such a good title that the team came up with because we are here for it. And, you know, we show up to work on marriage, not just kind of exist in it. Yeah. And
there's no neutral.
There is no neutral. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. And I just think that, you know, in our fast-paced driven society and culture, we just have a tendency to like really invest in our careers at an early age, and like we got to get to a certain place. And, you know, we've said it over and over again. Our biggest regret is that we didn't invest in our marriage from the beginning, because of how much joy it's brought us now. And I love the title, and then I thought it was really cool because we asked the staff how we came up with kind of what we're going to talk about, because I think that was the hardest thing. It's like, what are we going to talk about?
Well, it can be so broad.
Yeah, it's like, what are we? So they gave us like, there's a list of like 30, 40 things. So we've got really podcasts for the rest of our life. If this is successful, if nobody listens, we're not going to do it. Cause I think it's just pointless. But if people listen and find it helpful, we've just got a lot of things that they've asked, which are really cool and have helped us know. But we also want to make sure that you guys that do listen, if you have questions, we'd love for you to be able to email us. And so Jake, who's the producer, he's amazing at what he does. He's going to put an email address out there so that people can email us questions and stuff like that. And if we don't know, we won't answer them. We'll just tell you we don't know. But hopefully try to get you connected with some things that do. So I think it would be really good. So let's talk about, we kind of came up with this thing that we wanted to talk about today. And it was this little thing that we've been kind of going back and forth about. Mm-hmm. And it is this saying, you know the traditional saying, what's yours is mine and what's mine is yours. But what we found to be very true in marriage, and maybe it's just because of who we are, but I doubt it.
I don't know. I mean, I think we are, well, we can get into that. I think,
we'll get into it, Laura.
Both being firstborns and really driven people, I think it can.
When we argue really well.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is a great, passionate argument. That's for
some
sure.
Showdowns.
We have some showdowns. And you were wrong most of the time. I was right.
All right.
No. So we kind of started joking around this saying, what's yours is mine and what's mine is mine. And
because I'm selfish.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said it. I didn't say it.
I mean, when it comes to my hair products and skincare.
Yes.
That you try to steal.
Yes. And I think for us, it's really kind of learning on the simplicity of that has really irritated me in our marriage. Like in a major way, because I'm like, I'll give you anything.
You do.
I'll be like, you can take anything. And then I would like try to get a little bit of shampoo. And Lauren would be like, what are you doing with my shampoo? And I'm like, oh my Lord. And, it's funny because we're so opposite, but it actually played itself out in us trying to launch this podcast. So why don't you tell that story?
I'd love to tell my version of the story.
Your version's wrong, but I want you to get it out there first.
Well, you have a microphone. You can share.
Yeah, that's right.
So, obviously I mentioned this earlier, but being a little hesitant, I think, to do it in general, just because I already didn't feel like I was qualified to do it, and working through that personally. But we just work very different. I think most people know that about us that are in close proximity, and
very different.
I think for a lot of marriages, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say most because, I haven't done any research or polls or anything, but I think typically you look for somebody or interested in somebody that is different than you. And in the beginning, I think that's very appealing and intriguing. And
I mean, I've got with you because you were opposite of me, let's be honest.
And it sounds great in theory, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to find somebody that's like a real teammate. And then how it, translate even a step further for us because we do work together. That can be challenging. I think for many years we technically work together, but we haven't necessarily worked on one common thing together. And so when we were talking about this podcast and in the early conversations, I said to you, hey, I'm here for it, but I can't just jump in and out and wing it and just, because I'm not an extrovert.
Right.
Introvert, process internally, give a lot of thought to things, try to before I say them. I don't always get that right. But so I said that early on in the conversation about having a plan, knowing what we're going to talk about.
And I received that.
You did.
And I was like, yes, absolutely. We need a plan and I need to have that all, work it out.
And so this was 3 months ago?
Yeah, it was 3 months ago.
Or maybe 6 months ago. I don't remember now. But
and then we sent out the stuff to the staff and they responded. And I was like, man, this is amazing. I am winning. I am prepared at a level I've never been prepared before.
And then fast forward right before we were about to record. And I was like, so what's our
let's take that back. No, stop. It was the Thursday before we recorded on the Monday. So don't say right before we were getting ready to record.
To a planner, that's right before.
Okay, well, that's ridiculous. But anyway, whatever. We were out on a date night, and we were having a date night, and we had an interesting day.
That's a good way to put it.
We had an interesting day, and we were kind of going back and forth about things.
Some external
and we had kind of landed the plane, which one of our episodes we're going to talk about triggers.
Yeah.
But we had kind of landed the plane on one argument, and then this one started right back up with the magic question, so what are we doing Monday when we record?
So what's our plan?
Yeah, what's our plan?
And you were like, well... Why don't you finish that?
Then I was like, well, we're going to talk about it. We were supposed to record Tuesday. Let's get it right. So we were out to eat Thursday night, recording Tuesday. I was like, well, I figured we would meet. I have a time set aside Monday to really flesh it out. To which your response was, I don't want to do this anymore. Because
I quit.
I quit. Like literally that was her response. She's like, I quit. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I told you that we have to be planned out. And I think maybe the only time in our marriage that I've actually gotten this right is what did I do then? I asked a question, I was triggered and I was ready to fight. But I did ask a question. I was like, what does planned out mean to you?
Yeah.
And that's when you defined what?
I said, I need at least a week ahead of time to know
which
what we're going to talk about.
Blew my freaking mind.
And
I was like, you got to be kidding me.
I would like it on paper.
And you would like it on paper. And so
I need a strategy.
Yeah. And I think what's so been fun about the process for us, I mean, for me, is that in truth, like it caused a lot of other conversations about and realization that there's a lot of meetings and things that honestly I walk into that I've not, because I have a tendency to move from one thing to the next so fast that I've not processed that meeting. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going into it planning, and there's not a single room you walk into that you haven't planned for. And what we really discover that process is we enjoy working together when we're working with someone else. Mm-hmm. What we didn't know how to do was work together when it was just us. And how does, God brought us together, and so we do have strengths and we do have weaknesses, but it is that place of really learning how do we become the best form of us, mm-hmm. which requires both of us to move towards each other.
Yeah, and not shut down and give up like I was going to do.
Yeah, but that's your default. Your default is.
And I think we're going to talk another episode about conflict resolution.
Yeah, how do you really get past conflict? Because in our past, and I mean when I say past, I don't want to make it sound like it was a distant past. 6 months ago. I don't know.
10 years.
45 years ago. This is where we were struggling with. No, I mean this is stuff that we can still wrestle through. Is how do we get to a place of conflict or disagreements and get to the other side of it in a solution instead of one of us compromising to the extent that we lose the giftedness that we are individually.
Yeah, keeping unity, but also me not expecting you to be me and you not expecting me to be you.
Yeah, and that's hard.
Oh, very hard.
Yeah.
When you're trying to work together.
Yeah, but the best stuff comes out of working together. The best things for our family come out of working together. The best thing for our sons, the best things in our marriage mm-hmm. and our intimacy and all those things are actually when we're working together. So why do you think it's so hard? Like, why do you think the enemy, I mean, let's make it spiritual for a minute. Why do you think the enemy fights it so hard? And do you think he even really has to fight it? Or is it just our own human nature that's just wrestling through it?
I mean, I think it's both and. I think it obviously goes back to the garden.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot there that we could talk through, but I don't know. I mean, I only know my perspective. I only have my experience, mm-hmm. and so I don't know what it's like for everybody. I don't know if it's essentially the same truth for every marriage. That is the hardest thing is to get in unity. Mm. So I don't know. I think, I joked about it a minute ago, but we are both firstborns, and so we're used to doing things. Yeah, we're used to running the show and having our own individual plan. And so when you put two people together that come to the table and have completely different definitions of what planned out means, it's slowing down enough to know and have enough emotional intelligence to ask the other person the question instead of making an assumption. Mm-hmm. And I think pace has a lot to do with that.
Ooh, talk about that. Because it's funny. We've been together 20 years. We pastor together, we lead the church together, whatever that means in different seasons. But we've had to figure this out. It's kind of funny we're figuring it out or working on it so hard in this seat. We're using a podcast as an example. Mm-hmm. But we've had to figure this out in our marriage, in every aspect of our life together. And so, when you think back in our marriage, how has that been accomplished in our marriage? Like, what do you know what I'm saying? Because it's a big issue. And what we see in a lot of marriages is one person who's stronger than the other. And eventually the one who maybe compromises more mm-hmm. or
it's more like being compliant and really
complies more. Yeah.
Mutually submitted to each other.
That's a big word.
Ooh.
Mutual submission.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. I think I was talking to somebody the other day, and, in our opinion, marriage is mutual submission, not a hierarchy of submission. So even when you begin to dig into the Bible and talks about how Christ is the head of man and man is the head of woman, mm-hmm. still within Ephesians, it talks about them being mutually submitted to each other. So there can be headship, but yet still mutual submission. Right. And man, submission is very different than compliance. And so, when it comes to like aspects of our marriage, a lot of times what I've seen is that you end up having one person that is a stronger person and one person complying. And after years of doing that, they'll eventually get resentful of it because they're not in it together. Yeah. And so, for us, I think when you started talking about pace, that was a big deal because in truth, I think it's mostly out of my brokenness. I mean, it's kind of like everything in life. The enemy wraps himself in truth. And so with all of us, we have like great qualities, but left unchecked, they become the very thing that destroy us. And so like one of my things is I can move really fast. Like, I mean, that is true. And
why is that, Aaron?
Well, because what I've really come to know is it's because I'm so jacked up. And you said something to me, funny thing about like all of this. I mean, and really in this podcast thing where me and you were in this fight for 2 days. No. You basically said, so you really go to meetings and not thinking about the conversations that you're going to have in those meetings. And you said, how can you be at your best self? And the truth is, like, I was okay being mediocre. And you challenge that in me that, like, if you really don't want to say something stupid, you might want to think about what you're going to say in the meeting, because you are an extrovert. And if you're not careful, you'll go down.
Well, I think it took me a little while to understand you say things out loud and see how it's going to land.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's just different. I just don't do that. And so I'm not saying the challenge wasn't beneficial for you, but even internally inside of me, if I'm not careful, I try to make my best your best. And that's not always the case.
Yeah, that's true. That's good. Well, I think in marriage, we have to come to that place, and I mean, just in partnership, that somehow we're able to speak truth to each other's weaknesses, because in truth, I mean, in the reality is that you're one of the only people in my life that will speak truth to me, like deep truth. And I wish it would come out better sometimes.
A little softer.
Yeah, a little softer. And there's times where like I haven't wanted to hear what you've had to say, or in the moment I didn't react well to it. And there's been times where you didn't say it well. I mean, it's just been times where it's like, good Lord, that's tough to hear. But at the end of the day, we have to have enough, we have had to have built enough trust and have enough love and enough equity there that those things can be said, even when incorrectly, and not rejected.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we are so big on marriages, continue to work on marriage. It's like either you're building trust or you're losing it. And there's no like trust isn't just sitting there.
Yeah.
And so you either have to do it or work on it, or you're going to end up losing trust. And then when those things pop up, you don't listen to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. It's hard though, and I think it really impacts our children. It impacts, every aspect of our life. Talk about the pacing thing, because I think it's really, what are we learning about pace in this season that probably we never really understood?
I think, you mean in regards to like our family, marriage, or just kind of all the above?
Yeah, all of it.
Well, I'd say last year when you were traveling a lot, that pace was difficult because I felt like, and I didn't travel with you a lot the last couple years just because of what was going on with our kids and their lives and their schedules, and it just wasn't the season for me to go with you. And being on the other side of that, I felt like the time that you were here, it almost made me feel hurried, because I was like, okay, I got to download all these things, and we've got to talk about not only family stuff, but we got to talk about extended family stuff, and we have to talk about work stuff and what's going on with one of our kids at school. Yeah. And I felt like I was tight on time, and so it made me feel hurried. Yeah. And I think for me,
and transactional. It felt very transactional.
Very transactional. You can get very easily into business mode.
Yeah.
And let me cross off all the things that I need to talk to you about, the decisions that have to be made, instead of just taking time to sit and listen to the other person. And one of the skills that we learned in counseling was to talk through, how do you really hear the other person, which is to talk through the 4 W's, which I think are now 5.
It's 5 W's.
They
added
W's
another
now.
W.
Yeah. Wows, worries, wishes, wounds, and now wisdom.
Ooh, which I think has been really good. Yeah. So wows, worries, wishes, wounds. Why don't you just talk through that real quick so that everybody knows? Like, what's our wow?
Yeah. So one of the things that we learned.
We do this with our kids too now.
Yeah, we have. We've brought it into our whole family unit. But one of the skills that we learned in marriage counseling early on was a lot of couples, and I don't think this is just true for couples that work together. I think this is just true in general, is you kind of can get just in transactional like business mode, or you can talk about work all the time, or you can only talk about kids all the time instead of like really hearing each other's hearts.
Yeah, you lose connection with each other. It becomes about all the stuff around you.
Yeah, so you start with like, what's your wow for the day? And I mean, it could be anything. Like I said yesterday, my wow was which probably triggered you. My wow was taking Ruby for a walk because it was nice outside.
You didn't take me for a walk, but you took our dog, Ruby. I'm jealous of Ruby always.
Sweet Ruby.
Yeah.
And then you go from wows to worries. Like, what's a worry you're holding on to? The next one would be wish, and that can be anything that's like you wish to happen tomorrow all the way to you wish that'll happen this year. Dreaming together, I think, is a good thing. That's kind of probably what that part of it is about. And then wounds, which I think we can probably talk more about on the next episode with conflict resolution. But you're trying...
Because most of the conflict that we have is connected to a wound that has been unresolved.
Right. And the goal is to keep short accounts with each other.
Yeah.
But I would say even when you're talking about wounds, it could be a wound that you experienced from somebody else, not your partner.
Yeah. That you can't fix.
That you can't fix. And I think that's the hardest thing, is to listen to somebody talk about a wound. And the whole goal in the wows, worries, wishes, wounds, now wisdom, is to not fix or have an answer for what the other person is saying. And that is really hard.
Yes.
Really hard.
But yeah, especially for a fixer like me.
Oh, yeah.
Let me fix your problem.
You're like, you should do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, I did not ask you.
Let me give you a pastoral plan.
And the last one is wisdom, and that is just to talk about something that you learned.
Yeah, and I think we've been that's been fun, because I think it kind of challenges you to learn something about yourself, you know, and I mean, we've definitely been in that season of trying to learn about our makeup and just more like how we process and things. Yeah. So it's been really good. So,
so even having that conversation, when we first learned that skill, I think our counselors were encouraged, like, do it every day, you know, and we did it every day for a really long time.
And I initiated. So their big thing was you have to initiate.
Husband needs to initiate.
The husband needs to initiate. I was like, doggone it. That's ridiculous. All I want to do is initiate sex.
You're a great initiator.
Exactly. With that,
and you like to talk about feelings and talk things out. So it was easy for you.
Like,
I'm more so, let me just give a one-word answer and hope that he doesn't ask me more questions. But anyway, exactly. So even with that skill, I mean, we do it a few times a week now. I don't think we do it every day. But even in doing that practice, when our pacing is off, we're doing it just to do it.
Yeah, it's like drive-through.
Yeah. By the way, automatic, not really listening, just getting it out to get it out. But this year, making the decision for you to come off the road, we've had extra time together for date nights. We've had extra time together just to take walks during the day. We've had extra car rides together. I mean, it's not that we've completely changed our schedules in any way just because you're home, but it's more taking advantage of, hey, what are you doing in between this meeting? Do you want to grab a smoothie? Do you want to, you know, do that? And so it's the slowing down and just the proximity of being around each other more and taking advantage of those times that we are together. And that's, I mean, I'd love to say that that's all the time, but we're getting ready to be in baseball season. Oh, we are in baseball season. I mean, it's it's the dread spring, but and that makes it hard. But
you just triggered me. That just triggered me.
Look, I love it. I eat vegetables all the time during baseball season.
I'm already angry.
But having the pacing, and it's not that there's ideal pacing, and then there's reality.
Yeah,
and we can't live always an ideal
You mean
pacing.
I can't live in na-na land all the time? Like, that's where my struggle is because I'm optimistic. And so, I can live in this false reality where, like, let's get here and it will always be like this.
Yeah.
And it's just not. It's not reality, and I struggle. I mean, I struggle with that because, like, she's laughing about, hey, we're getting ready to enter in baseball season, but you've been telling me that for like a good solid 2 months. Like, we just came out of a really great weekend together, had a lot of fun, just a lot of good stuff, and you can all read in between the lines what that means. But we had a good weekend, solid, but one of your comments was, we really needed this because baseball's getting ready to start.
Well, and especially now with both of our kids playing baseball, they're in
and us being opposite places.
We're in totally different fields sometimes. For a while, when it was just one of our kids playing, we were all together.
Yeah.
We would drag David along to everything. And now he's kind of got his own schedule in life, and so we are split up more. So I think
the Wows, Worries, Wishes, Wounds for me too, and wisdom helped me figure out a way to unpack your heart and get you to talk. Because I think that if you ask me how I'm feeling, like, I'll give you a dissertation. I will give you a 5-page letter. I'll just feel like this, and it'll just all spill out, and none of it will make sense, and you'll be more confused.
I'm like, wait a minute, you just told me something completely opposite 2 hours ago.
Like Lauren did. Oh gosh. And so, but for you really hold stuff in. And so it kind of gave us a way to, like, unpack with each other. It kind of gave me boundaries of what to ask so that then I can unpack without going so crazy. and then it gave me an opportunity to unpack with you, and you actually share your heart in a safe place that I wouldn't try to fix. So it was very crucial in our relationship. We do it three or four times a week now, probably.
Yeah,
right?
And now that we have a driver,
thank you, Jesus.
And he likes to, go do.
It's an expensive Uber, but
it gives me heartburn just thinking about that insurance. But anyway, now that he's kind of growing up and not home all the time, we've tried to be good about. I think it's completely unrealistic to think we're going to do family dinner 5 nights out of the week.
Yeah,
so for us, we just try to do it once, and we communicate it with our boys, and we communicate it with Leslie.
So they come in with the right thoughts.
Expectation
That's
of,
right.
Hey, you're cooking something because I don't cook. You do all the cooking, and we're going to sit around the table. We're not going to have our phones. We're not going to watch TV. We're not going to talk about work. We're not going to talk about church. We're just going to talk about the 5 W's. And so we all 4 go through it together, but. I don't know, that would be extremely hard if you were still traveling and keeping up with some of that pacing. So,
yeah, for sure. And I think, there is business that we talk about, every week.
So we have a specific time.
Yeah. Why don't you share about that? Like that's probably something that's helped us too, is like we do it the same time every single week. We have a business meeting, and go ahead, talk through that, because I think that's really good for people to hear. Like what's in that business meeting, and why is that business meeting so important?
Well, yeah, we go over our calendars, and we are kind of in a season with our kids specifically that we have to divide and conquer, and we need to talk through and have a plan of who's going to what game, who's picking up who from practice. And we we kind of go through every single day that's coming up that week and talk through, well, where are you this day, and how can I help you, or how can I show up for you? And with the podcast, we talk through, when are we actually going to sit down and talk through the plan? And so I know
we
some
do
of
4 real things together, and that's like our all staffs, our elders meetings, podcast, and lead team meetings.
Yeah.
And so those are the 4 things that, like, buckets that we're like really intentional, or trying to be more intentional about this year, and processing together.
Yeah. And then
working on together.
We talk about what night is going to be family dinner. How many nights are you going to cook?
Yes.
That's really good.
Yes.
And also we plan out intimacy.
Yes.
So we talk through, what does that look like?
Yes.
What's a healthy expectation?
Yes. Yes.
We save that for the end.
Like, when are we going to try to connect during the week? What's timetables? You work a lot better with, like, we're like, let's hit this goal. Like,
give me some margin.
Give you some margin in case crap hits the fan,
yeah,
what do we do? You know, and so we do that, and then we really try to be intentional on the weekend or one night during the weekend.
Yeah.
You know, usually, and so, but that ebbs and flows, and that way we go into the week both being able to talk about like what our expectations are, where we're going in all things, and really be on the same page so that we're in unity and trying to, you know, talk through stuff before we get there.
Right.
Which I think is
but
really
puts me at ease.
Oh, yeah. And it puts me at ease because I'm not just sitting around wondering, you know, and I mean, so it's just a really important practice that we do it every single week. And I just can't tell you like.
And normally it's on Sunday nights.
It's usually on Sunday nights, and we are at a different season now with the kids that we get to go out together a lot more. I mean, it used to not be that way. So we used to do it at home on Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Before Yellowstone came on. And so we try to do it then, and now we get to go out to eat and do it every Sunday night. And it really has, because really there's two things in there that mean the world, but they're very different. What means the world to you and what means the world to me. And so what means the world to you is that we go through our calendar and we are processing where we're at together, where we're planning. And then what means the world to me is when are we doing this thing? And so it kind of takes care of both of those pieces. So we're not talking about it all week long.
Correct.
Which is really, 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 really important.
And we've also noticed the weeks that if we've had something happen on Sunday night and we can't get together, that is like that's like the one thing that shows up throughout the week. We're like, I thought we talked about this. Oh crap, we didn't.
Yeah, well,
we missed it.
Was it a few weeks ago that we didn't get to do? Well, I think was it conference week?
Probably.
It probably was. Everything goes out the door conference week. But we got to like Thursday after conference and we were both kind of like
just sharp with each other.
And I mean, just kind of like we
say snarky a lot.
Yeah, we do, man.
Why are we snarky with each other?
She is passive aggressive. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
No, we were in that mode. You could tell it was getting ready to start going downhill. And I remember you saying, you know what we didn't do? We didn't have our meeting. And so we were both kind of just floating in the week. And honestly, like I'll usually have, if we don't set the expectation, I'll create one.
Oh, yeah, you will. Yeah, you will.
I'm trying to be honest. You're just doubling down. But it's true. And Lauren always has an expectation of everything that I don't. And so, you know, I think it really revealed to us. I would just say this about these things that we're talking about. They sound so simple, but it's so easy to drift from them.
Yeah.
And when we've drifted from these two things, it's probably caused us some of the most pain. Of just like, man, you end up in a place and you're like, how did I get here? Well, you got here because you didn't do consistently what most people don't. And it's just really, really important. We're shutting this episode down. This is our first episode, so we've gotten in there deep.
The
intro. Here for it.
If this doesn't tell people we're going to be all over the place, I don't know.
Yeah. Welcome to marriage, where it's all over the place.
It is.
Yeah.
Did we hit? I know you have some notes over there. Did we?
Man, we
miss
hit
anything?
everything, right? We talked about all the things. We polled the staff. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine.
Mine.
Yep, you selfish thing, yeah. You know, and I think one of the things, and really the reason why we talked about even how do we get here to doing the podcast together is that we do have, you know, people who are ministry couples together, and probably some of the things that first off, we're graced in this season to do what we do together. I think at times we've taken that for granted and maybe even tried to put it on other people. Like, this is the way, you know.
This is the way.
This is the way. Sounds like a Star Wars intro. But the truth is, what we've learned is that what we are, and you can speak into this, obviously, but we're called to be together. And that might have different expressions in work. And probably the hardest thing that we've had to do is work together, is learn what we're talking about. There's a lot of people that just don't do it. And so if you have probably one of the easiest seasons of our marriage in some ways was when you had a different job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because we had something else other than this.
Right. I did that for 12 years.
You did that for 12 years. Then you went home for a season trying to recalibrate. And then you came on here. And you've done many tasks here. I mean, you've been from being on my team, like I'm saying, like working on the team, like over a department, over an area, which was very hard for us as a marriage. It was great for the team. It was hard for us. To now us doing things together. And all of them have had challenges. And I would just say to all the couples out there that do work together or in ministry together or think they want to be in ministry together, like I think what we would say to you is this the hardest thing you'll ever do. And it requires you to work on your marriage way more than what anybody else will. Like, I mean, and I don't mean that like in a, like it's better than. I'm saying it will require you to work on it twice as much as anything else, because man, we can look successful in church or in our job, but it's causing chaos in our house with our children. And then the other thing I think that we've really kind of grasped in this last few months really is that it could look different tomorrow.
That's very true.
And that's okay, because God's a seasonal God. And the good news is that regardless of what function we're carrying, how it's all going, we said we're here for it.
We did.
And we're in it together.
We are.
Love you.
Love you.